Oh, and so my garage, and I think I have too many slides in here in my garage, but just this is what it looks like after the tulip. This is about 3 inches of soil in this spot. That's after the tulip has gone to flower. And I got a bunch of other stuff up there. This is what it looks like in spring, or it used to. And so I get a number of grasses, and they kind of die out. These are the flowers from the sempervivum. And I did sort of clip my roof. I used to leave it real sloppy like this, but my wife said, "Okay, are you done testing that roof?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And she goes, "Well, let's trim it up." You know.
So what do your neighbors think of this?
Actually, I have a nice little story, and I'll tell you now. Like I said, I have removed all of this and I've replaced it. So when I removed it about a month ago, my neighbor came over and said, "Tom, what'd you do with your Ecoroof?" And I said, "Oh, I took it off and it's all in my backyard and I'm changing the membrane and I'm going to put it back on." She goes, "Oh, good. That looks terrible." the conventional roof that was exposed, you know. So that was a nice confirmation that it's accepted at least by my next door neighbor. And then this is just showing where some of these plants are. There's the tulip and the acri we talked about earlier, the album, Kamchaticum, spurium in this area. Let's see the album in this area. And this is in the spring, so you can see the album is actually red in the spring and it turns green in the summer. A little bit more acri here. Bluebells are not in our report, but bluebells have been coming up on my roof. Again, they were from the soil in my garden that I just put up there. And then sempervivum, and then Johnny jump ups come up every year. I had some seed one year and I put it up there, and they've been coming up every year after that. So this is kind of like this little area that's about as big as this table, and it's like all of this variety in that small space is probably a good thing.
Did you notice any weeds, Tom, coming up that were in your yard that were then coming up in your soil that you used?
From my yard?
Yeah.
I didn't have any weeds in my yard.
Exactly.
Have you met Sherry yet?
Yeah.
Anyway, sometimes just typical weeds, but very few weeds come up here now. That incidental ripgut grass does come up. That's some of it right here. You can barely see it.
And the muscari came up right from the
muscari, which isn't in this photo. That tulip bulb, when I took the Ecoroof off, the tulip bulb is about, well, kind of like as big as my hand. It's really big. I don't know how. I don't really pay much attention to tulip bulbs except for the one on my roof, but I thought that's a pretty big bulb, it seems like. And then this is just one of the early shots of the sedum album that can have these very long stalks, flower stalks. And then, of course, this is the membrane that I have now removed. This was clear visqueen, so it lasted 12 years before I had a leak in the material. And predominantly on my roof where I had the leak, and I do have a lot of photos, so if we do a residential kind of thing, I'll show all the photos of where it was. Where this has been covered by soil, today it's just as strong as it was the day I put it on. But any place where I had around the what I'll call it, the edge or the parapet, there's a little bit of an edge there that was not really well covered, and that's where I started getting leaks because it started breaking down, and so when it would rain, the water would get in those spots. And so that was my problem. I didn't have, remember the good material, good construction, good design? I had a few pores in there on mine. Yeah, I had dry rot before I even ever put the Ecoroof on. Matter of fact, the only reason I had enough nerve to put an Ecoroof on my garage was that it was falling apart. And I thought, I gotta rip this thing down. This thing is, in the winter it was all full of water because the roof was leaking and everything. And then I thought, hey, what if I just threw a bunch of dirt up there and tested this Ecoroof idea that, yeah, and that's why I used visqueen. It was just a temporary thing. I was only doing it for a year, and then after the first year it was like, well, I wonder how it's going to work next year, and on and on and on. Yeah.
I was wondering what load it was rated for when you put it up there, and how heavy it weighs now.
If he had a permit, he'd know.
Hey, he was grandfather, doesn't matter.
Well, I if you haven't noticed, I do like numbers, I do like calculations, and so I did a calculation relative to the amount I purposely weighed my soil. So without going through all the details, I went through all of those details. My soil weighed, according to my methodology, about 17 pounds for 2 inches at a very moist condition per square foot. And then inside the garage, I put in sister studs. So each stud that was there, I put another 2x4 stud attached to that. And then at each stud that was attached to a joist, I attached a cross bracing 2x4 that gave me that kind of bracing in that sense. I put 1x6 material in to triangulate the studs so that they were connected and give me that, whatever that kind of strength is. And so when I was up there after I took all the soil off, I was up there and I was jumping around on the thing. And other than seeing that where some of the rotted planks are, I mean, I didn't go through, but I could feel it was kind of soft. And but the roof was really, really sturdy. Now, the only reason I put the roof back on is that I don't have the finances right now to rebuild the garage. So it's just it's another cheap membrane, which I don't recommend. But I just put it up there temporarily, and then within the next year or two, we're looking to to rebuild the garage and to get a permit.
Do you notice an insulation factor with that versus before you had that?
Absolutely.
I could imagine.
Yeah, it just really keeps it cool in the summer.
Right.
And actually, there's no heat in the winter, and it's pretty cold in there in the winter. So it doesn't warm up on a sunny day in the winter. The garage does not warm up, but in the summer it really stays cool. 20 degrees different. I've measured that.
Not to belabor your garage too much, but how about the ceiling joists? What are they, and how far are they spaced?
They're 2x6s, and they're 2x6s, and they're 10-foot span, and they're 24 inches apart. Does not compute right, does it, Peter?
They're probably really 2x4. They're also old growth timbers.
I did put in a couple sister joists, so I didn't put them on all of it, but I put in a couple of sister joists, and again I have that cross bracing in there. It's been there for 12 years, and then of course this is the first signs of biodiversity moving right along on to other issues. So good amount of biodiversity was first observed. The question of, freezing cold temperatures and what would happen to the Ecoroof. Somebody said once that if you had an Ecoroof on a building that was not heated in the wintertime, that the plants would freeze. Well, obviously my garage is not heated. It's been there 12 years. And none of these sedums have ever died in the winter. I just haven't ever had any problem with those plants, even though the whole thing has frozen solid, I'm sure, because there's absolutely no heat. And the plants can take that. And then, but just more of that, the honeybee that's up there. It's a lot of fun to, well, maybe you wouldn't like it, but just to be up there and watch the insects and things. So, I mean, I got that picture because I was just up on my ladder looking at the flower, the sempervivum. And as I was looking at that flower, because I thought, oh, these are fascinating little flowers, then the honeybee comes up and starts, and I have my camera, and then click, click, Anyway, I'm sorry. That's my little pastime. So this is Sedum spurium, and this is frozen rain. So freezing rain, you can see this characteristic that vegetation, as somebody was saying earlier, vegetation does intercept rainfall. In this particular case, it's sort of dramatized by the fact that it's intercepting freezing rain, and it's accumulated in that sort of crystal ball effect. Isn't it? It's almost, I mean, it's like art. Moving right along to another subject.